You don't exist. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look at better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheap again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 7th part of What If Deku Meets My Little Pony. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Demon Heart 12 on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Back with Izuku, the boy was making a victory dance for another day where he messed with Kendo's life and got off scot-free. It was amusing, to say the least. Sir was looking at him. You know, I wouldn't mind you messing with the girl, but messing with Gran Torino is a death sentence. You're simply asking for trouble to come to your doorstep. Izuku rolled his eyes. Oh please, what can the old geezer do to me? He can barely walk without his cane. Izuku flexed his muscles. I can't see him beating me. Night I shrugged. It's your funeral. He then became serious. Now, I want you to sense all the chaos close to you, and our sidekicks will respond accordingly to them. Izuku nodded his head. He sat on the ground and began to focus as much as he could. Alright, there's a robbery going on 2 streets down from here. Sir gave the coordinates and a sidekick went there, a mugging inside an alleyway 2 blocks from here. And it continued like this for half an hour before Sir finally said, alright, you can rest now. Izuku cracked his neck. Man, it's been a while since I did this. Most of the time I mostly focus on messing with people with my power to create more chaos, or draw chaos without searching for a source. Yeah, I heard that. He put his arm on Izuku's shoulder to try and activate his powers. The man this time was met by Izuku on his back laughing like a madman with 10 different Izukus laughing with him. Sir stopped and looked at him with a frown. I hate that you're the only person who I can't see his future. Izuku chuckled, and you never will be able to do that. He patted him on the back. Don't feel bad about that. I highly doubt that anyone can see into my future, and if they did, they'll see one thing. Sir raised an eyebrow and asked, and what that might be. What Izuku said next made him laugh. Izuku crossed his arms. Of course, there'll be interstellar peace. Aliens living among humans. People going to planets outside of Earth learning new cultures. Sir began laughing hysterically as if someone told him the world's greatest joke, irking Izuku, who asked, did I say something funny? Because I think I missed the joke. Sir wiped a tear out of his eye. You making interstellar peace. Now, that is a joke. Sir took his glasses and wiped them clean. If anything, you'll cause interstellar war just for your amusement. Now, you listen over here, mister, Izuku said, puffing his chest as Discord appeared on his shoulder. I might like chaos a little bit, but at the end of the day, I'm still a hero in training. Discord laughed. Yeah, a hero in training who's driving his sister's class's president in madness. Discord slapped his knee. You could have fooled me. Izuku grabbed him by the neck. Whose side are you on, exactly? Discord shrugged, causing Izuku to shake him rapidly, making Sir sweat drop, but Izuku suddenly stopped and shivered. I feel an insane amount of bloodlust coming this way. Sir raised an eyebrow. Could this be a villain planning to attack the agency in broad daylight? He rubbed his chin. This might be the dumbest villain I ever saw or the bravest. Izuku shook his head. No, it's not villainy enough. Izuku concentrated. It seems like it's 2 dots of pure unfiltered anger with a dot of exasperation and denial. I wonder who this could be. Izuku turned to Sir and said, it's time for Mini Izuku to go on a spying mission. The boy opened his skull, making Bubble Girl who walking by them faint on the spot. Izuku then pulled out a small version of himself with wings and said, go and see who is coming here. Mini Izuku nodded his head and saluted him as he flew away to see who was coming in the direction of the agency. Sir looked at the boy, this ability of yours is too handy. Izuku chuckled as he waited for his mini version of himself to tell him who was coming here. With mini Izuku, the small creature was outside the agency as he flew over the city toward the overwhelming bloodlust. When he was close enough, he landed on a building and watched. Down on the street, Jiro asked, "Is this necessary, you two? Do we really need to do that?" Kendo and Gran replied, "Yes, we must do this." This made Jiro sweat drop and sigh. Kendo said, "I'm going to make him pay for waking me up, and sending this piece of SHT. Kendo pulled out the raccoon who she caught dancing, after me. Gran added, "And I want to make him pay for messing with me in general." With mini Izuku, the small Izuku panicked and flew back to HQ like a monkey with its butt on fire. Back with Izuku, the boy was tapping his foot impatiently waiting for mini Izuku as he fought Mirio with two clones. The clones were having a match of volleyball with Mirio being the ball and Sir crying off to the side silently. Mini Izuku barged through the ceiling and went down to Izuku. Izuku looked at him and said, "What took you so long? Do you know how much I waited for you?" Mini Izuku slapped him on the face and whispered something in his ear. The small clone then opened Izuku's skull and went to hide inside it. Izuku's face became pale. He then began to run to Sir, "You're a hero, so protect me." Sir's interest was quirked and he wanted to ask why the boy was so afraid, but the sound of his agency's door being opened followed by bouncing noises. The man smirked and asked Izuku, "Didn't you say that he's just a cranky old man a while ago?" Izuku looked at him, "Is this the time for?" The boy couldn't continue his questions because he was interrupted by a kick that caused his face to cave in. Gran stood above Izuku, "Did you brat think you can mess with me of all people and live to tell the tale?" Mirio wanted to intervene, but Sir stopped him. Izuku crawled from Gran, but he stumbled into something. The boy's face was still caved in, so he felt it up. It was smooth and long. He heard a click like a photo being taken. The boy popped his face out only to see Itsuka standing there with her phone and a smirk. Izuku gulped as Itsuka said, "I wonder how Pony will feel when she says a photo of you feeling my legs." Izuku chuckled, "You wouldn't do that to your friend, would you?" The girl sighed for a bit, "You're right." Izuku sighed in relief, "I can't do that, but I can." Izuku looked at her enlarged fist reared backward, "Do this instead." The girl punched the boy so strong, that he was sent flying outside the agency. A few moments later, Izuku was sporting an ice pack with Sir and Gran catching up with each other. Izuku looked at Kendo and Jiro and asked them, "So how's the internships so far?" "Mine has been interesting." Jiro replied, "Ours has been Gran Torino over there kicking our butts at every angle." Kendo nodded, "Yeah, not counting all the shitty stunts that you and the raccoon carried against me." She then grabbed her hair, "Slime and chocolate, seriously? Do you know how much time I spend in making it this clean?" Izuku shrugged, "What can I say? You get rallied up so quickly." Kendo felt her eyebrow twitch due to the answer, but Gran and Sir came to them. Sir said, "After much discussion with Gran Torino, we decided to have a joint internship going forward." Gran Torino then said, "So get ready, because we're going to train your bones off." All of them nodded excitedly, but all three students didn't know the risks waiting for them. With Pony, the girl was jumping around with Miruko. He had her Pokemon on her back as she used her horns to fly around the city following Miruko like a lost puppy. Pony was training with the heroine right now to follow her on her horns to make sure she could stay in the air for the longest time possible. They had been at it for about 5 hours and Pony felt her legs getting numb from balancing her weight so much. Miruko came to a halt and ushered Pony to come down. The horse girl flew down to Miruko who said, "You've been doing fine. Take 5 and rest." Pony nodded as she fell face first into the ground. She was exhausted. She then felt Miruko drag her by her horns. "I said take 5, not go to an early grave. Come on. You're making heroines everywhere look bad. What happened to girl power and all that SHT?" Pony lifted her head, I can the fifth. She then flopped back onto the ground. Miruko rolled her eyes. First off, this isn't America, she then added. Second off, I'm not asking you a question, I'm just giving out a statement. And third, you're a big hypocrite. Pony then stood up and walked beside her. I know, but I guess I didn't think my first internship would be this tiring and boring. I thought it would have more action. Yeah, I get you, kid. Miruko said, you kinda remind me of myself when I was your age. The small girl with the mutant and seemingly harmless quirk, you get the shtick. When I joined my first internship, believe me when I say it was boring to the bone. Pony looked at her, was it that bad? She couldn't imagine the badass hero Miruko having a lame internship. Miruko rubbed her head, you tell me, it was boring. All the time, I was forced to increase my jumping and leaping ability. They forced me to jump from one wall to another. Forced me to kick dolls. She crossed her arms, we didn't have any type of action until the final day, and all I did was stand there like an idiot. Pony looked thoughtful for a moment, I guess so, but still I accepted more. She rubbed her shoulder, at least a little bit of action. Miruko laughed, okay, tell you what, Pony looked at the hero, how about after we finish here, we go to Hosu City tonight, I heard that a lot of action happens there at night, and it would be a good experience for you. Pony nodded excitedly, but suddenly an explosion filled the area. The two females looked and saw a couple of criminals robbing a store. Miruko smiled as she leaped after them, keep up, rookie. Pony frowned, oh no, you don't. I saw them first. Back with Izuku, the boy was training with Jiro, Kendo, and Mirio. The boy was training on using his clones to coordinate and use multiple types of powers at one time. Discord was sitting on Grand's shoulder, you're doing fine, Izuku. Keep pushing yourself. He then pointed a finger to himself, maybe one day, you can be as good as me. The main Izuku who was fighting Mirio summoned a shoe and threw it at the chaos entity. Discord dodged, but the shoe hit Grand Torino who was pissed off with Izuku. The man didn't give Izuku a moment to regret his choices as he flew toward the boy and kicked him in the back, allowing Mirio for the first time to land a hit on the boy. Sir shook his head, we need to work on your spatial awareness, Midoriya. Izuku flipped him off as one of his clones turned into a bull made from lighting and rammed Itsuka in the gut, causing the girl to get launched into the ceiling. The bull then turned into a tiger who caught the girl fell back. The one fighting Kyoka was by far having the worst time since the girl's speed posed a challenge, but in the end, he just made the floor slippery, causing her to slip and have a face-to-face meeting with his fist. Jiro replied by giving him a kick to the crotch, making every male in the room cringe in pain. Izuku went down, but he also opened a portal above Kyoka and let an army of spiders fall on her. This made the girl run around the room and flail her arms in fear. Izuku looked at her and enlarged the spiders, this what happens to people who target the family jewels. In the end, Sir called an end to this training session, because he felt that Izuku was about to drop the training gloves and get serious. He didn't want to see what that looked like. Izuku stretched his body, okay, so what are we having for lunch? Kendo smirked evilly, we're having a special dish of rooster meat. I personally made it just for you. Itsuka handed him a sandwich and smiled, enjoy. Izuku nodded happily and took a bit, you know Kendo. You're such a good friend when Nizu-sensei and I take over the world. Grand Torino leaned toward Sir, won't history blame us if we don't take him out now before he and the demon rat begin their plans for world domination? Sir shook his head, don't bother. Gran looked at him curiously, he has immortality. Gran groaned, you gotta be kidding, so whatever we do, we won't be able to stop him. Sir nodded in confirmation, the best we can do is try to be as friendly as possible to our future overlord, and to not get on his bad side. He looked at Gran, or at least make him angry at us more than he already is. Gran growled, I won't bend over for a child, especially not Toshi's child for that matter. Izuku was still talking, and for that, I will make you my favorite SLV. I'll make sure that Pony and any of my children, biological or adopted, try you well. Kendo felt a tick mark form on her forehead when he said that she'd be his favorite SLV. She heard soft laughter coming from Mirio and Kyoka, so she glared at them, making them stop. Izuku then asked, by the way, where did you find such a tasty sandwich? Itsuka smiled, no, I made from that chicken you sent to torture me with that raccoon, which I'm going to make a rug out of. Said raccoon, who was inside a box, began to shake to try and escape. Izuku's mouth fell wide open and he couldn't believe what was happening. I'm eating cocoa. The boy fell to the ground and began to wail dramatically before grabbing Kendo's head and taking it off her body, making Bubble Girl, who was walking nearby, faint once more. He held Kendo's panicked head in his hands. Why would you do such a thing? What did he ever do to you? He was only 1 year away from being retired. He had a family. Kendo couldn't answer because her head was in his hands and she couldn't process what was happening. In the end, the boy returned Kendo's head to her body. The girl was shivering from the horrifying experience, but she looked at Izuku. I'm going to get you back for this. Just remember my words. She walked away. Now excuse me while I go scream my frustration away, because this was truly horrifying. Izuku looked at Sir and asked him, so what are we going to do now given that we're done training? Izuku sat down on the ground. Are we going to have some actual fieldwork? Gran nodded. For someone who's all about chaos, you said something useful. He looked at Sir and said, so, what do you say, Mirai? Want to take those rookies down to the ground? Sir adjusted his glasses. I suppose it would give them a feeling on how patrols are done at night given that the sun is about to go down. Gran then said, all right, you little punks, I want you all to get ready, so we can head out. The man then flew toward Izuku and kicked him in the gut. And you, don't try to do anything funny or I'll break your bones, as much as I can. Izuku gave him a shaky thumbs up. You got it, old timer. He crossed his fingers behind his back. I'll make sure to not pull anything against you. Gran nodded, but he was still skeptical of the boy. He wouldn't admit it, but if he were Toshi's successor, he would have fled the country due to the boy's childish behavior and his general attitude toward anything and everything. Izuku chuckled as the man went away, making Jiro roll her eyes. You really can't control yourself, can you? Izuku smiled. Nope, I still get my revenge for Coco, by the way. Jiro only laughed at him. In another location, Tomura was playing a video game when Kurojiri appeared in front of him. Tomura asked the mist man, did you get them? Are they ready to go out and destroy everything? Kurojiri nodded. Sensei gave you 3 of Nomus. Kurojiri looked nervous from his charge's reaction. While they're not as strong as the USJ Nomu, they are still quite formidable. Tomura looked and saw 3 Nomus. One of them was a long Nomu with gray skin. The other Nomu was yellow and had wings. The third had huge muscles and his color was purple. Tomura rubbed his head. Good enough. We'll move in about 15 minutes. He then went back to his video games. With Stain, the man was in Hosu. He was watching his next prey. Native. The man lifted his sword and declared, everything I do is for the sake of a better society. Pony and Miruko were making their way to Hosu City. It was their first nighttime mission together. Pony was hovering on her horns. I can't wait to make it to Hosu City, so I can kick butt and make my name known more than Izuku. She couldn't wait to make Izuku see her new moves. Miruko hummed for a bit. Do you mean the green-haired mischievous kid who made his final fight into a song? Pony nodded. Man, I sent him an offer. Why didn't he come here? I wanted to go around against him. I wonder what kind of SHT he would have pulled to fight me. Pony thought about it for a moment. He would have probably summoned a magic hat and pulled you out of it, or he would have trapped you inside the turtle and the rabbit story for his amusement. Miruko was shocked. Yes, fighting him means you need to be ready to put your pride and dignity aside because they are about to be steamrolled. Miruko smiled savagely. You know what? Pony looked at her. I really need to fight him to see who's going to make fun out of whom. Miruko saw Pony's shocked expression. What's wrong? Pony stammered a little. well, you're the first person to say he wants to fight him willingly, and not be a crazed Pomeranian who's high on espresso. Yeah, it's shocking. Miruko just grinned, what can I say? I love to live dangerously. She imagined a fight between her and Izuku. Finally, I found a worthy opponent. Our fight is going to be legendary. I hope there's a way to set up a fight between us. Pony shrugged, unless Nizu sets a fight between you and Izuku, I doubt this is going to happen. Miruko sighed but received a bing on her phone. The rabbit lady checked it and smiled savagely. Pony gulped and asked her, is there a reason why you're smiling like that? It's creeping me out. Miruko just smiled at her, just wait and see. Just wait. It's going to be an epic day. Miruko then built up speed, come on, keep up, rookie. I'm not going to slow down for you. Pony frowned, like hell, I'm allowing you to beat me there. The girl then did her best to keep up with her mentor. It was a fun race, but this peaceful night was going to end very soon. On the top of a building inside Hosu, a portal opened. Tamura walked out of it with 3 Nomus following him. He looked at the peaceful city, this peace, it disgusts me. I want it to end, right now. I'm going to destroy this city, and show this society how weak it is. The man was getting an atomic underpants wedgie. His underwear was pulled so far that it covered his eyes. Kurogiri came to Tamura and freed him, young MSTR, what just happened? Tamura glared at Kurogiri, what do you think happened? I got a wedgie. He looked at the city, someone just gave me a wedgie. I want this city to be burnt to the ground. On the train, Izuku was laughing his butt off from the orb he was using. He saw the hate speech Tamura was beginning to spew, so he decided to give him a helping hand. The wedgie he gave Tamura will be remembered by the idiot till he dies. Itsuka asked him, why are you laughing like this, Midoriya? Are planning on sending demons after me tonight when I sleep? Izuku simply stared at her, or are you planning to send me to Mars? Izuku shook his head, neither. Right now, I sent a pack of piranha after Tsuyu. They won't kill her, but their bites will make her unable to sit for a while. Her rear will be in so much pain. Jiro deadpanned at Izuku, I understand, Kendo, but why are going after Tsuyu now? Izuku shrugged, nothing. I just made a lucky draw, and she won it. Great, isn't it? Jiro just stared at him with a bored expression, it almost landed on you. I was going to make a small cricket jump into your head and scratch his feet to make the most annoying sound possible. Jiro sent her jacks near Izuku's ears, if you ever do that, I will eviscerate. Understand that? Izuku slowly nodded, but he made plans to do that to her next year. He really wanted to make the girl squirm under his hands. Jiro was too easy to mess with when you know how to go under her skin. She may try to act cool, but she will eventually break down in annoyance. Sir asked Izuku, though I am intrigued, Izuku faced him, why are you smiling like that? Izuku smiled, I just gave Tamura Shigaraki an atomic wedgie. I pulled his underpants over his head, the boy laughed a little before gaining a bored expression, and by the way, he's about to attack the city with 3 Nomus about. Something landed on the train, now. The train's roof was ripped away revealing the winged Nomu standing on it. All the people on the train began to panic and worry, but Izuku yawned and summoned a giant fly swatter. The boy yelled, don't worry, Phlox. He slammed the flying Nomu away, this bug is gone now. Gran leaned toward Sir, I guess he's going to be one of those beloved overlords. Sir agreed. Sir then said, Midoriya, I want you to go and follow that thing. Izuku nodded and transformed into a green phoenix. He quickly began trailing the flying Nomu to destroy it. Gran looked at his interns, girls, you are responsible for people's safety. Use your quirks if the case demands it. Don't go looking for trouble. Gran jumped out of the train and followed Izuku. Sir looked at the girls, alright, let's evacuate the train safely first, then we can go to the ground. The girls nodded and waited for the train to come to a stop to help the people off it. With Pony, the girl was looking at Hosu City with fright. She couldn't believe what was happening. The entire city was on fire. It was being destroyed by the same monsters that attacked her and her friends in the USJ. It was an unpleasant memory. Miruko looked at the situation and cursed, "SHT. Everything is getting burnt around here. I need to go down and help the other heroes." She jumped away ordering Pony, "Safety measures for civilians. Don't use your quirk unless forced, and hero killer hunting." Pony looked at her mentor, "Does she think I'm crazy to go after the hero killer?" She remembered who she was. Dating, yeah, maybe, I'm a little bit crazy, but Izuku is a different type of crazy. The girl used her horns to hover on the ground where she saw a couple almost crushed by falling debris. The girl used her horns to save and take them away from danger. The girl yelled, "Go away from here. It's too dangerous. There's a safe place around the corner." The couple nodded and fled the area, leaving the girl to go and assist others. Pony sighed, "I hope this night doesn't get much worse than it already is." She shivered a little. "Why do I always say that? It's like I'm just asking for trouble." The girl began to hover around using her horns to find more people to help and save. With Shoto, the boy didn't regret going to an internship with his father. He was the best fire user around, so he couldn't ditch him for someone else less experienced. It would be a bad mistake. On the first day of the internship, his father went on and on about how Shoto would succeed him in the world of heroics and become the next number hero. His father took him to his office where he found pictures of Izuku, Pony, and Fuyumi. Shoto asked him what the pictures were for, and his father told him that this was his plan to make sure the Chaos Boy married his sister after finding a way to make Izuku leave the horse girl. Shoto thought his father was crazy for this stupid and unethical plan. He already had enough SHT on his plate, does he really need any more to add to that? Apparently, his father does want more SHT to add to that already overflowing plate. His father demanded he go and begin hitting on the horse girl to make her seem like she was cheating on Izuku, so the green-haired boy would dump her, and then he would take Fuyumi. Shoto refused for many reasons. The chief among them was that he wasn't going to allow his father to treat his sister like a piece of meat. The second reason was that he still remembers what happened during his fight with Izuku. He still had nightmares. He knew Midoriya wouldn't kill his mother, but that doesn't stop Izuku from putting Shoto inside a nightmare where he sees this scene over and over again till he goes insane. Third was to just PSS off his father. His father obviously wasn't too pleased with that, but a phantom hand appearing behind his father's head and slapping him was all the man needed to stop being a beach. After that episode of his father showing him why he was considered by Shoto as an insane person who shouldn't have been allowed to ever become a hero, Shoto's actual training began. As much as he hated his father, Shoto had to admit the man's control over his quirk was amazing. The way he uses his quirk is top gear. It must have taken his time to make it as good as it was. Shoto trained with his father day in and out. His father was like he remembered, an actual SLV worker. He forced him to use his quirk constantly till he hit his limit where he couldn't do it, but his father will keep him pushing himself to increase his limit. Shoto had to admit that his training yielded impressive results on the first day. His limit slowly began to increase. He noticed this after he lasted 5 more minutes each time he went all out. After training his fire, his dad trained his ice, making Shoto keep producing ice at a constant rate to increase his immunity against frostbite by increasing his limit before he was tired from the cold. It was a good training session that day. He got half an hour of sleep. The rest of the week was going to be the same with the occasional patrol to give Shoto some experience in dealing with crowds and handling some minor villains. It was nothing special. His first night patrol in Hosu City was supposed to be the same as his daytime patrol, normal, but it appears fate had other plans for him and his father because things got crazy after an hour of his presence there. It was going to be an interesting one. His night started with a normal portal. His father was scaring away anyone who came near them and dared to ask him for an autograph, but suddenly an explosion rocked the place as a monster from the sky came down and began attacking everything in its path. His father quickly jumped to action and blasted the thing in its guts and sent it flying. He looked at Shoto. Shoto, you handle the civilians. No quirk usage unless you're pushed into a corner. Shoto nodded as he began to guide people away from the fighting areas. He saw in the sky a huge Nomu flying with a green phoenix on its tail spewing fire at it. With Ida, the boy wasn't having the time of his life. The city was being attacked by creepy monsters and he was trapped in there, but now he was helping Manuel put down the fire that was engulfing the city. The water hero was blasting buildings with water from his quirk to put out the flames. Ida, try and evacuate the civilians. Ida nodded and began to guide civilians away from the fighting area, but he then noticed something from the corner of his eye. It was a shadow that was moving quickly. The hero killer is here. The boy wanted to follow him but remembered what Izuku told him, don't do anything that I would do. No, seriously, don't do that because it's reckless. The voice kept rambling on about how stupid he would be to follow the hero killer and try to beat, but eventually shook his head and proceeded to follow the man. A small Izuku was floating in the air. The little Izuku deadpanned, man, it's like talking to a rock with little to no brain. This guy is an idiot. Going after the hero killer. The mini Izuku began to fly around till he found Shoto. Mini Izuku flew to him and yelled, Shoto. The dual-haired boy looked around until a slap grabbed his attention, it's me, Mini Izuku. The boy looked at the small winged clone of his friend, what are you doing here? And how am I supposed to know you? We never met. He got slapped again. Focus, you overrated strawberry ice cone, Shoto pouted as Mini Izuku carried on. Ida for some goddamn followed the hero killer Stain into an alleyway. Go and stop him from doing something stupid. Shoto's eyes widened. He knew that Ida's older brother was attacked by Stain, but to actually go hunting after the hero killer was insanity itself. Right, I'll go and save him. Shoto began to go away, but Mini Izuku yelled, send a text to the others to come and aid you. Shoto took out his phone and sent a message to the others as he entered the alleyway system. He just hoped he'd reach Ida before he did anything stupid. The boy shook his head and he hoped he'd reach Ida before he got on the bad side of Stain. With Izuku, the boy was following the flying Nomu in his phoenix form and attacking it, but for something so huge, it was surprisingly nimble and able to dodge his attacks. Izuku finally got bored from this little game of cat and mouse between them, so Izuku sped up and began to twirl around, creating a vortex of green flames that engulfed the Nomu, burning it to bits. The yellow Nomu flew from the sky like a crisped piece of beacon. The monster hit the ground away from a couple who shrieked in fear, but Izuku landed near them. Don't worry. You're fine. I've taken care of this monster. He then opened a portal, go through it. It will lead you to the train station away from here and the fighting. The couple hurriedly entered the portal and Izuku closed it. The boy looked around and saw the flames roaring around the city, so he simply took a deep breath and let it out. He caused huge winds to flow through the city and snuff out the flames completely. Izuku didn't know. He managed to make Tamura roar in outrage because his plan went away in the wind. Back with Tamura, the young man was kneeling in anger on the roof of the building. He was hitting the ground with his hand. What the hell happened here? The city was burning. He looked at the peaceful-looking city except for the occasional sounds of fighting, and now, everything is fine. Kurogiri tried to calm him down. Don't worry, young MSTR. I bet the Nomus will continue destroying the city, leaving an imprint on hero society. Tamura calmed down. Alright, I'll calm down. You're right. There's nothing to worry about. Suddenly, in front of Tamura's eyes, the destruction visible in front of his eyes began to fix itself, making the man yell in absolute as his entire plan failed completely. Back with Izuku, he was finished with fixing up the city and walked around to heal people's injuries when stumbled on Endeavor fighting some muscular Nomu with Gran Torino. Izuku increased his body mass and tackled the Nomu to the ground. Izuku began to go ham on it and PND it into nothing in front of Endeavor and Gran. Endeavor came near the Nomu and burnt it with his quirk. He looked at Izuku, "Good work, kid." Izuku nodded and asked, "Where is Shoto?" "I don't see him here." Endeavor shrugged, "I told him to control the civilians, so he's probably somewhere here." Izuku hummed, "Yeah, I'm going to take a small break now." The moment Izuku tried to rest, he saw something flying his way. It was the mini Izuku he sent with Ida to make sure the boy didn't do anything stupid. And from mini Izuku's arrival and the look on his face, Ida went out of his way to do something stupid. Okay, so what did Captain Stiff do this time? Did he go after the hero killer? Yeah, mini Izuku replied. He then looked at the Endeavor, and what the hell are you doing here? There's a big Nomu in the center of Hosu causing chaos and destruction. Endeavor and Gran quickly went there as mini Izuku disappeared back into Izuku. The boy then sat and rested his head against a wall as Discord appeared. What are you doing? Your friend is in danger. Go and help him. Izuku lazily looked at him. Yeah, I was just resting my body. Izuku then jumped toward Ida. Earlier, the hero native was making his way through the alleyway. He needed to reach his agency to call for more backup from other agencies from nearby cities. The situation was a nightmare. He used a shortcut for his usual speedy travels, but he suddenly heard a sound above him. He looked, but didn't see anything. The man's instincts activated and rolled on the ground avoiding a blade that was going to hit him on his shoulder. Native looked behind him and came face to face with every hero's worst nightmare recently. It was the hero killer Stain. What the hell are you doing here? I don't have time for you. Stain glared at him, escaping from the fight, aren't we? You truly are a fake. Stain lifted his blade and readied himself to fight. Fakes like you should be purged from the world. The hero replied, look, I don't have time for this. I need to reach my agency to call for backup. Stain scoffed, lies. You were fleeing the fight. Stain pointed his blade at him, say your goodbyes because this will be your final day in this world. The hero dodged to the side as Stain lunged at him. Native then ducked under the blade, but he felt a sudden sting in his leg. He looked and saw a blade there. Stain quickly overpowered the hero and took the blade from the man's leg, jumping away from the slightly injured hero. Native looked at the hero wondering why he jumped away from him, but suddenly, the hero felt his body become heavier and fell to the ground. What is happening here? Why can't I move? The hero killer replied, this is the last of your concerns, fake. You should be more worried about your incoming death. The hero killer slowly made his way toward Native. Stain raised his sword above the fallen hero. The hero killer was about to kill him, but he saw from the corner of his eyes something coming toward him. The hero killer jumped away, avoiding a kick from a man dressed in armor. Ida looked at the hero killer. If his brother was still injured and unable to move, he would have been angry and yelling at the man that he wanted to kill him, but now he only wanted to stop. It was his duty to bring down the hero killer as the younger brother of Ingenium. Ida yelled, so, it's you. The hero killer. He looked at the man who was eyeing him carefully. The hero killer rubbed his chin, I'm sure that I saw you before. The hero killer then realized why Ida looked so familiar. You're related to the Ingenium, aren't you? I still don't know how he managed to recover, but I will take him down once I'm finished here. Ida took off his helmet. I won't allow that. I'm Ingenium's younger brother, and I won't allow you to hurt him. The boy looked at the hero killer. Tenya Ida, will stop you from hurting anyone. Stain snorted, don't make me laugh, kid. He then pointed his sword at Ida, go away from here. This is no place for a child. Don't you dare stop me from performing my mission. I'm not afraid of ending you just like I almost did your brother. Ida was about to yell something stupid, but a paper manifested in front of him. Both Ida and the hero killer were shocked, but Ida grabbed it. The paper said in bold letters, "Don't say stupid SHT, you moron. This is the hero killer you're talking to. He will kill you if you even make him feel that you aren't heroic." As much as Tenya hated this, he knew this was true. Ida replied, "I don't care what you think. You keep hurting people. You keep destroying lives. It's my job as a hero in training to stop you." He then noticed Native, "And I'll save him from you." Stain hummed, "It appears you have a small seed of conviction in you, but I can't allow you to stop my work." Stain then rushed Ida, who barely managed to avoid a strike aimed at his leg. Ida then went to deliver a kick to the man, but Stain ducked and stuck a knife inside the boy's shoulder. The hero killer took it out and jumped away from Ida. Ida then suddenly fell to the ground. DMN. What just happened? Why can't I move? Stain walked toward Native. "Doesn't matter. The only reason you're alive is because you have a small seed in conviction. You managed to control your anger, so I'll spare you, but this fake." Stain pointed at Native. "He's going to meet his maker today." Ida yelled in anger, "No, you can't do that. You can't just kill people because you don't like the way they act when there's 100 different ways you can expose them." Tears fell from his eyes. "If you truly want to help society, give the evidence you find to the proper authorities." "Yeah, like that would work," Stain snarked. "This society is obsessed with those false idols. Even if you gave them all the evidence, they will keep worshipping them." Ida yelled, "That's false. There's a lot of heroes who were taken to courts." Stain's patience finally reached its limit. Silence. "The only true hero in this world is All Might. He's the only hero allowed to kill me." He looked at the sky. "Everything I do is for the sake of a better society." Stain then stood in front of Native to finally end him. Native closed his eyes waiting for his life to end, but he suddenly felt very cold. The man opened his eyes and saw that in front of him was a giant iceberg that separated him from the hero killer. Ida looked at Shoto. "Todoroki-kun, how did you come here? In fact, how did you even know that I was in trouble?" Ida saw how the boy was panting. "Midoriya," Shoto said panting, "he left a little version of himself on you to deter you from doing stupid stuff." He looked at Stain and then at Ida. "Apparently, that didn't work." Stain looked at Shoto. "You're the son of Endeavor, aren't you?" Shoto replied curtly, "As sad as that is, yeah, I'm that man's son. I just hope this brand doesn't follow me my entire life. My dad has an unhealthy habit of making enemies out of everyone." Stain nodded. "I don't care. You're that fake son, so that means you're a fake as well." Shoto readied himself to fight. "Wonderful. This is the price of being my son's dad." Stain sped toward Shoto, who made an ice wall and blocked his attack. The hero killer made his way around the wall only to be met by a line of flames. The hero killer moved away only for another ice attack to come his way, but Stain avoided it skillfully. The fight continued this way for a little, with both sides going back and forth between the hero killer and Shoto until Stain finally managed to stab Shoto in his leg. The man brought the knife up to his lips to lick it, but he was punched in the face by a new arrival. Shoto looked and saw Kyoka standing where Stain was a moment ago with Kendo on her tail. Kyoka looked at her classmate. "Todoroki-kun, are you alright?" She looked down at Ida. "And you, what were you thinking? Attacking the hero killer? What kind of pot were you smoking?" Ida yelled back, "Focus, the hero killer is still here." Kyoka and Kendo looked at the man who stood. "You can scold me later if we manage to survive this." The hero killer groaned, "Interruption after interruption to my work. This can't go on. I won't allow this anymore. I will end this now." The hero killer sped toward Kyoka, but the girl dodged him, allowing Kendo to give him a punch with an enlarged punch. The hero killer avoided the punch, but he was then attacked by a fire attack from Shoto. The man jumped away from the fire only to be met by another punch from Kyoka. The man fell to the ground, but he stood up and wiped a little bit of blood. The man was so over this fight. He looked at the kids. If you're so interested in defending this fake, then you're all going to die with him because you keep interrupting my work. The hero killer then let out a huge wave of bloodlust toward the students, making them freeze in their place. A voice then said, "Man, I thought the hero killer would look more awesome, but you're disappointing. I guess I was hoping too much." Everyone looked up and saw Izuku standing in the air wearing a shinobi dress. The boy looked at Stain, and by the way, your victim. I already sent him to the hospital, so don't bother wasting your time trying to kill him. Stain looked at the newest arrival, you're him from the sports festival. The hero killer's face hardened, you're one of the greatest fakes that I ever saw. Izuku titled his head till it was upside down, what the hell are you talking about, you overzealous fanboy? Izuku puffed his chest, I'll have you know that I take my work greatly. Stain scoffed, after what you did to that boy in the sports festival, I highly doubt that you're in it to save people. You're someone born with a strong quirk. You're only in it to flex your muscles. Izuku yawned, are you still talking? Izuku cracked his neck, you're just a crazy sociopath. You're no different from Tamura. You both destroy what you don't like. You're nothing but an all-might fanboy reject who didn't have what it took to make the cut. Stain roared, be quiet. I dare you to throw such random accusations at me. But everything I said is true, isn't it? Izuku said, crossing his arms, a Kuguro Kaizome, quirk is called Bloodcurdle. It allows him to paralyze anyone when he ingests their BLD. The duration of the paralyzed state depends on the person's BLD type, with O being the shortest while B is the longest. He tried to become a hero, but he had a fallout due to the corruption, so decided to be a vigilante only to decide later to become a crazy killer in the name of All Might. Did I miss something? At this point, Stain was beyond angry. So, he rushed Izuku and in the blink of an eye decapitated the boy. His friends were all shocked and terrified as the bloody wound began gushing like a geyser. His BLD was making a dance like it was a fountain at the center of a park. Kendo was the only one who wasn't afraid for Izuku. She only yawned, when will he end this? Stain turned his back to Izuku's headless body which fell to the ground, making Kendo say, man, turning your back to him, a rookie mistake for the so-called hero killer. Everyone looked at the girl with Kyoka asking, aren't you even a little afraid right now? Itsuka shook her head, no, not really. She then pointed at something, look at that. She casually pointed to Izuku's body where two crabs made their way out of his wound and headed toward the hero killer. Izuku's body stood up and began stumbling toward the head. Izuku's head yelled, to your right. His body went to the left, making the head yell, to your right, not my right. Izuku then realized something, the ears are still on me, aren't they? He looked as the two crabs made their way up Stain's body and began attacking him, with the man screaming in pain and jumping in the air only to be met by a frying pan waiting for him. Izuku then used a GPS installed in his body to reunite it with his head. The boy patted himself, good. Everything is good. The brain is functioning normally. The heart is working normally. Good. The hero killer stood up and growled. He looked at Izuku and pointed his sword at the boy, I should have known that someone as troublesome as you won't go down that easily. Izuku then said, so you want a sword fight, huh? Izuku smirked, then two can play this game. The boy then pulled out a swordfish from his pants. He looked at it and frowned, I left my sword in my other pants, DMN it. He looked at the swordfish, well, I guess you have to do. If you play nice, I'll introduce you to an appealing female swordfish. The swordfish saluted him, so Izuku looked at the hero killer, let's do this. The two lunged at each other and began to fight. Their swords were clashing and making sparks, while the rest of the students were watching them fight it out. Shoto, who was munching on a candy bar, tilted his head toward Jiro, shouldn't we join in? Jiro shook her head, we'll only be getting in his way. She then saw Izuku slash the hero killer's pants, making it fall, causing the man to fight in his tidy withies, Kendo, give me more popcorn. Kendo was sitting beside Jiro and handed her some popcorn. The girl had a stain foam finger. Ito looked at Kendo. Are you seriously cheering Stain just because Midoriya made your life a living hell? This seems a bit unethical. Kendo flipped him off. You try to wake up with a wild hippo sleeping on your chest. The fight between Izuku and Stain was intense for Stain, but Izuku was having the life of his time because everything was moving in slow motion for him. It felt like he was in the Matrix. Izuku then summoned 2 cloud storms that shocked Stain, making him twitch. Stain looked at Izuku and growled, "Fight fair, you fake." Izuku replied, "Stop killing people, you crazy moron. Trust is a two-way lane, my good man." Stain lunged toward Izuku and managed to stab Izuku, but Izuku barely blinked. He smiled at Stain before he turned into smoke. The hero killer was blinded, but when the smoke cleared, he was met by a mallet to the face. Izuku then asked, "Still want to fight me, hero killer?" Izuku then brought out a gun and shot the hero killer with lightning rounds that the man barely managed to dodge. Izuku then put his hands on the ground and made them shift. He then made 2 hands that began to coil around Stain before lifting him in the air and throwing him around. Izuku then used his telekinesis to move Stain around, making him multiple stone pillars before a sign appeared saying, "Tilt." The hero killer then fell to the ground unconscious with a bloody face. It seemed that he was put inside the ringer. Izuku looked at him, "Yeah, never mess with my friends." Izuku walked up to them and bowed, and the fight is over. Thanks for your support. He saw Kendo with a sour face, and Kendo, have a nice eel attack. The girl looked and saw an electric eel wrapped around her legs. Izuku, you son of. The electric eel began to electrocute her, making her hair stand up. Izuku then tied up Stain with a pair of shark jaws to make sure he couldn't get out of them. Shoto then asked, "So what are we going to do now? You managed to defeat the hero killer, so I guess we have to take him to the proper authorities." Jiro nodded, "I already called Gran Torino. He's coming here, so I think we have to stick tight here." Everyone nodded, although, I have to say he's pissed off with me and Kendo for fighting Stain the hero killer. Izuku bowed for them, although not as bad as Pony when I told her you fought the hero killer. Izuku's face lost color. Izuku quickly ran to hide somewhere, but a horn came from the sky and almost skewered him. "Izukumidoriya," Pony yelled at him, "have you officially lost your mind to fight Stain? What the heck is wrong with you? Do you need to make me have a heart attack every time you leave the house?" Izuku shivered as she landed, "Do you have anything to say for yourself?" Izuku bowed, "I'm sorry, so please don't kill me. I'm really sorry. I'm going to take you on an amazing date after the internships are over. We can go to Mars if you want." Pony slapped him on the head, "Enough with the coward talk. I'm not going to maim you." Izuku sighed, but Pony carried on, "But I'll make you into my new training dummy. I still need to try those new moves Miruko taught me. So, get ready for hell, Izuku." The boy became as pale as a ghost and looked at Shoto for help. The boy looked away and coughed into fist, "You deserve this for showing my mom killing herself." He looked at Kyoka who flipped him, "You brought this on yourself, so get ready to go into the grave that you dug. It was nice knowing you. I will speak good words about you." He looked at Ida, but the boy was saying, "Finally my salvation has come. I won't be forced to work him." Izuku didn't bother to look at Kendo, because she was asking Pony to let her join in training on Izuku. The boy sighed as he accepted his fate. The team of teens then made their way to the heroes as Izuku dragged the hero killer. He looked at the man, "This is all your fault by the way." It was a new day at UA High, which meant more fun for Izuku Midoriya, but currently, he couldn't do anything chaotic because he was tied to a post as Pony used him as a training dummy. "Pony, sweetie." Izuku began, "As much as I love the fact, I'm your favorite training dummy for various reasons, going from heroic to personal, he received a kick to the groin for the double entendre, but seriously though, I think that class is about to start in 5 minutes. Pony sighed and crossed her arms, fine, clean us both up. The boy snapped his fingers and both were clean and ready to attend classes. Pony glared at Izuku because he was still in the dog house for his stunt regarding Stain. No, the girl forced him to sleep in a dog house near her dorms. Vlad and Aizawa allowed it to happen as some kind of sick revenge for all the pranks he pulled against those two. Kendo on the other hand was more than happy to sit and watch them all night to make sure Izuku didn't get out of the dog house. In her words, she wanted him to suffer. But this horribly backfired when Izuku turned the chair she was using into a rocket ship and sent Kendo to the moon. She spent a day and a half there. It wasn't till Pony kicked him across the face that the boy agreed to bring the girl back. The girl had many scratch marks since her space suit was full of fire ants, lice, poison ivy, and scratching powder. The boy went to his classroom where everyone was chatting with each other. Discord appeared on Izuku's shoulder and leaned against him. The ex-Lord of Chaos said, "You know the frog girl will have its vengeance against you for sending piranhas after her, right?" Izuku frowned, "I don't think Tsuyu is capable of doing anything to me. She's a sweet soul." Momo suddenly marched into the room followed by Kyoka who was laughing hysterically. She stood in front of Izuku and took a paper to write on it. The girl showed Izuku the paper that said, "Turn me back to normal or I swear to everything I'm going to let my babies rip you limb from limb." The boy arched an eyebrow, "Come on, Yamamoto. I thought you would appreciate the new improvements. We're friends after all, so I thought I could upgrade you." Kyoka meanwhile was still laughing so strong, she was pounding on the table. Shiro asked the purple-haired girl, "Okay, so what is happening and why does Momo look one step away from blowing a fuse?" Kyoka only kept laughing. The purple-haired girl felt a glare directed at her. She turned to see Momo with a dark aura surrounding her and veins throbbing all over her forehead with pure white eyes. She was also breathing steam from her mouth. Kyoka calmed down, "The genius over there," she pointed at Izuku, "he made an unpleasant upgrade to Momo. Momo right now can only speak from her stomach which comes out as muffled cries of help while her mouth can only release sounds of hunger." Kyoka went beside Momo and began tickling her only for her mouth to open and release hunger noises. The rich girl slapped Kyoka's hands away and glared at her friend making Kyoka quiet down. Izuku sighed and rolled his eyes, "Fine, I'll turn you back to normal." He snapped his fingers and Momo was engulfed in a puff of smoke. When the smoke cleared, Izuku lifted a frog and put it on his head. The frog was croaking in frustration as Izuku said, "Now, only true love's embrace will free you from your shackles and froggy prison, so have fun being stuck in this slimy." The boy was slapped by a long appendage that came from Tsuyu. Tsuyu had a dangerous glint in her eyes as she approached Izuku. The frog girl grabbed his collar and put her face in his. "Can I know why I had piranhas attacking me in my internship with Selkie out of the middle of nowhere? Do you know how painful it is to pull out teeth from my rear?" The boy giggled a little, "Wait a minute. How do you know it was me? Those piranhas could have been there naturally." Tsuyu gave him a bored look, "How are looking at me like that? I didn't do it." Tsuyu threw him at Ochako, "Ochako, get rid of this traitor of this moron." Ochako then performed some kind of martial arts move on the boy and smacked his face into the ground. Izuku phased through the ground and appeared back at his desk with Frog Momo clinging desperately to his hair. The frog sighed in relief. The crisis was over and she was safe. Momo began to croak to force Izuku to turn her back into a human, but the boy wouldn't budge as he laughed at her predicament. It was truly entertaining. Aizawa walked into the room. He looked at his students. He noticed Momo missing. He looked at Izuku, "Okay, where did you do with Yaoyorozu? Did you make her a mermaid and send her to the depths of the ocean? Did you give her some kind of apparatus to make her breathe in space?" The boy pointed to his hair, "All this little appealing frog needs to become Momo once again is love's true embrace." Izuku chuckled, so if you know anyone who truly loves Momo, let him embrace her. Aizawa rolled his eyes and grabbed Momo. He threw the frog toward Shoto, Todoroki, embrace Yaoyorozu so we can get this dog and pony show on the road. Aizawa walked away. Shoto asked, how do you know I'm the one that loves her and not anyone else? Aizawa shrugged, it was either you, Jiro, Kendo from class 1B, or Mineta's lust. If you don't work, we'll keep going down the list till it finally works. Shoto shrugged and kissed the frog only for it to be engulfed in a blinding light. Once the light was gone, Momo could be seen wearing a princess dress as she sat in his lap. Momo coughed in her fist, I'm sorry for this, Shoto, but I'm going to remove myself from your lap. The girl had a dark blush on her cheeks because Shoto gave her a true love embrace. Shoto on the other hand was as cool as a cucumber. He sat there silently waiting for Aizawa to start with the class. On the inside, a small Shoto could be seen standing in front of a conspiracy board trying to unravel multiple conspiracy theories he was working on. Aizawa coughed, grabbing everyone's attention, alright kids, let this show begin already. He looked at a bunch of papers he had with him, I received reviews from your internship results. It was good. He then looked at Izuku and said, Sir Nightai says you're a walking disaster, but good enough to be still labeled a human, so try not to annoy me or him anymore. The boy smiled at him, but Aizawa carried on, but now we'll have All Might give you a class. And with that announcement, the man turned into his caterpillar mode, I'm going to rest. The number hero entered the room, I'm here to give you newbies a lesson in heroics. Now please everyone, head to the training grounds so we can begin today's activities. The students then filtered out of the room with Momo holding her princess dress and walking like royalty. I have to admit this dress is rather cute. I will keep it. All Might sweat dropped at the heiress's proclamation. He shook his head and went to the training grounds to meet them there. The training exercise was simple enough. It was a small race between the students after they were divided into groups of 5. Of course, Izuku ended his race within a minute and made sure the others had the race as strong as he could make it with demons, flying dragons, swords, and flames. His classmates, for a lack of better term, were pummeled to the ground and turned into dirt except Bakugou, who was up to the challenge and was quite pleased with his performance up until he met the spanking vampires who gave him the spanking of a lifetime. Izuku meanwhile was operating the entire orchestra of torture. He was laughing madly so much that Kendo threw a shoe at him from her class telling him to be quiet. The boy replied by flipping Itsuka's hands with her feet and vice versa. After the training section was over, the students went back to the class with bruises all over them. Aizawa entered the room and Izuku gave him a thumbs up, which he returned with his signature creepy smile. Alright, now that this is over, I can tell you what's going to happen next. Ochako then jumped up and complained, did you release him on us? How dare you? Did you know what kind of torture he put us through? I was forced to fight him face huggers. Mina cried out, DMN it. All I got was a couple of Mineta-looking trolls who were drooling over my legs. The girls slumped forward, but I have to admit it was funny melting their faces off. Mineta cried out, someone please get this necklace off me. It shocks me every time I think of. The boy was then electrocuted. Izuku looked at him, this my good friend is called the beads of redemption. Every time you so much have a perverted thought, you're going to be shocked with electricity. Painful electricity. Momo looked at Izuku, thank you, Midoriya. But how do we know that he won't be able to remove it from his neck and put it on us to train us girls to be loyal to him? Izuku replied, the guarantee is that to remove the beads, he has to do one of 3 things. First, cut off his head. Second, become a normal human being. Third, I need to deactivate them myself, and we're both sure that isn't going to happen anytime soon. Aizawa whistled, alright, this is going to be addressed later in the dorms, not here, but for now, I want you all to know that something big is coming over the horizon. The students began to sweat as Izuku made creepy music to accompany the atmosphere, your finals are here. Discord appeared and complained, stop hyping up the situation only for it to be extremely lame. Aizawa looked at the chaos being, no, I don't think so. This is my personal fun. Seeing those reactions is funny, and I can't get enough of them. He shook his head, but regardless, the exams are here, so I suggest that you all go study because those who fail in their finals won't be able to go to the summer training camp. He then walked out of the room. Mina and Kaminari exclaimed in unison, I'm so behind in studying. I can't believe this. Those two were at the bottom of the class when it came to academics, so they were at a disadvantage. Izuku looked at them, cheer up guys. I'm sure that you can pass with good enough effort. The two hugged him and asked Izuku to be their private teacher, but the boy slipped from their grip as he melted into nothing. He was now standing at the door, sorry, guys, but I can't teach you. Ask the happy rich girl, she seems to like this sort of thing. Momo was more than thrilled when they asked her to teach them. Izuku was already planning something to make sure that their study session was going to be funny as hell. In the cafeteria, Izuku was having lunch with Pony. The boy looked at her, so are we good now? Pony eyed him before rolling her eyes, I'm going to take 5 more kicks at you and then we're going to be cool as cucumbers. Izuku flopped to the ground and sighed. Izuku asked, so, how are you doing for the final exams? I'm ready as hell to make the exam as hellish as possible for the teachers. Our fight is going to be legendary. I'll make it rain diamonds. I'll turn the earth upside down. I'm going to blast them with gender-reserving rays to see their reactions. Pony sighed before kissing his cheek, why are you always looking for trouble Izuku? Izuku gasped, I'll have you know that I don't look for trouble. He crossed his arms, I attract trouble to me. Pony and Ochako sweat dropped wondering what's the difference between the two things. Izuku explained his point of view, it means that I am innocent of 90% of the things that happen. Good to see that some of you Class 1A losers have the courage to admit that you attract trouble, Monoma said from behind Izuku, don't you guys have anything better to do than attracting trouble? Well, given that I sent fire ants to your pants right now, Izuku hummed as Monoma began to jump around like a monkey with his butt on fire, I suppose no, we can't do that. Monoma felt relief when Izuku made the ants disappear, but he returned to Izuku and tried to elbow him only from his elbow to hit Izuku's head which was as strong as a rock making him wince in pain. Monoma then yelled, of course, you Class 1A ruffians would harm your betters. Monoma then shook his head, well, I have to say something. Why did you fight the hero killer? Monoma wanted to get a raise from the students, but they ate their lunch as if he didn't say anything. The only one who replied was Izuku, your classmate also joined in this fight. Don't try to act all high and mighty. Therefore, by your logic, your class is also troublemakers. Izuku thought of something, in fact, I'm going to enlighten you in the ways of chaos. Izuku snapped his fingers and Monoma was engulfed in a holy light. When it was over, Monoma had a holy aura around him. He took a meditative pose and a third eye opened on his forehead. The boy levitated, I have reached a new level of enlightenment. Going on, I will spread the word of chaos through the land to enlighten misguided people as my. The boy's rant was cut off when Kendo neck chopped him and he fell to the floor like a sack of potatoes. Kendo lifted him and put him over her shoulder as she glared at Izuku, turn him back. Izuku shrugged as he took away the enlightenment from Monoma, pity, he would have made a good profit for me. Going through the lands. Making miracles happen. Spreading the good word. Kendo slapped Izuku upside the head making the boy spin in the air till he landed in Pony's lap. Kendo glared at the chaotic boy, don't you dare do anything. Kendo rubbed her forehead, look, I came here to help your classmates. Look, I heard from a friend of mine from a student who's in a higher grade that the exams are mostly robots, so don't worry. Izuku laughed a little, do you honestly think our teachers are going to make the exam the same way they do it every year after what happened this year? Kendo processed his words as Izuku added, then another thing, Nizu-sensei asked me to chime in and make the exams much more interesting. Izuku then grabbed Pony from her waist and gave her a smooch on the lips. He then slapped the horse girl's rear. This girl of mine is going to have a test easy, and whoever ends with her is going to get an easy A. Izuku walked away from the cafeteria and looked at Pony and winked, by the way, Pony. The embarrassed girl looked at him, I have something special prepared for you when you return to the dorms. It's going to be awesome. Pony sighed as her blush began to recede a little, it's going to be totally stupid. Inside the bar of LOV, Tamura sat there tapping his hand impatiently waiting for Jiren to come with the new recruits to his little league. He needed new members to hopefully launch an attack and make people remember that the League of Villains is something dangerous. He was still pissed off about Hosu. All his planning. All his strong work went down the drain because that green-haired boy took the news. After all, the green-haired boy captured the hero killer and hung him up like he was a fisherman who caught the biggest fish in the lake. Tamura looked at Kurojiri, I still don't get why sensei didn't allow me to kill this brat. Tamura decayed another table at the bar and said, it would have made my life much easier. Kurojiri replied, it's because the boy's quirk is too valuable to be lost. I'm sure once sensei has stolen his quirk, he will allow you to kill him. Tamura stretched his neck furiously and nodded. Kurojiri then received a call from Jiren, so he opened a portal. A man wearing a purple suit with glasses. He was smoking a cigarette in his mouth and had glasses resting on his eyes. Along with the man were two figures, one of them was a teenage girl while the other was a well-cooked human being who seemed to have been spending too much time in the oven. Tamura pointed toward them and asked, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves? The girl stepped forward, hi, my name is Himiko Toga. I want to live my life the way I want. Living my life is becoming strong, so I need to live it freely, but then I found Mr. Staney. I love Mr. Staney. I want to see him bleeding. I want to see his BLD. I want to be him. Tamura looked at Kurojiri who shrugged as Tamura mentally scoffed, great, another Looney Tune. The man then stepped forward, my name is Dabi. I haven't done anything worth mentioning, but I'm planning on doing something big and following in the footsteps of Stain. He then looked at Himiko, are you sure that you're a follower of Stain? Because I'm sure this lunatic wouldn't be here if you were. Tamura then scoffed, what the hell is wrong with you people? We, LOV, attacked the USJ for crying out loud. We attacked UA and made the children fight for themselves. Why are you hung on Stain? Dabi rolled his eyes, coming to this ditch was a mistake. Take me out of here, Jiren. Tamura screamed, do you think that you can come here and just leave? The moment you entered the bar, it was the same as signing your death certificate. Tamura launched himself at Dabi while Dabi readied himself to attack. Himiko decided to join them, but Kurojiri opened portals and dispersed the attacks to make sure that no one was hurt. Kurojiri then said, young MSTR, how about you give them a chance? I'm sure you'll find it beneficial. Tamura nodded. Jiren then made his exit as he said, I expect to find my payment. In the dorms, Pony walked to her room. Today was torture. From training with All Might to her boyfriend's antics, to Itsuka tearing her ear off as she complained about her boyfriend's antics, it was a little stressful. When she collapsed in her bed, she received an email that said to go to the theater that was made about 5 minutes ago by her boyfriend. The girl stood up and groaned, Jesus. The girl walked and saw her friends walking to the theater. She asked Kendo, why are you coming even if you know that there's a 50% chance this is a scheme to make your mind unravel even further? It just doesn't make sense for you to come here willingly. The girl replied, well, I can always beat the living SHT out of him after this is over, so yeah. Once they reached the newly made theater, all the students entered with Pony at their lead. Inside the tent, they saw Class 1A sitting with Bakugou having his mouth taped shut and Mineta being electrocuted every second, making him wail in agony. Kendo asked Momo, so what is this all about? Is he planning to convert us to be his followers? Momo shook her head. No, he said that he made a small play by the name, The Heroic Princess, but I think it must be a codename for something else, so prepare yourself. Momo's voice sounded like a man and Kendo was holding back her laughter. Midoriya made me like this. Don't laugh at me. The lights inside the theater went out and a panel opened revealing scenes that came out of a traditional Japanese house. It also showed pictures of the royal family. Pony looked around for her boyfriend. I think that somehow he's going to embarrass me. The play begins with the arrival of Kaguya enters the castle and looks around. The princess asks for something that she heard about. She wants a new breed of flowers that appeared in the forest. A daimyo stood up and protested the princess's selfishness and how she redirecting resources for something ridiculous, but he was silenced when the shogun entered the room. The daimyo settled down when he saw the shogun because he knew that if he opposed the princess, her finance would kill him. The princess walked up to shogun to ask for a favor from him. The shogun heard the princess's request but was not sure of it. The princess wanted to accompany him to the forest so she could harvest the flower herself. The forest was a dangerous place, but then he had a solution. He pulled out a whistle and called a kunoichi. A young woman dressed in an orange ninja outfit. The woman had green hair and a very attractive figure that made the boys wolf whistle. The girls looked at themselves and then her making them feel jealous. Mineta began to whistle like a dog. Wow, that girl is unbelievably hot. I didn't know Midoriya had. The boys screamed in absolute pain from the electric shock received. Zero looked at Mineta twitching on the ground. Dude, you need to realize that if you continue on this path, you're going to kill yourself. The little boy didn't respond. The only person who wasn't jealous or attracted was Pony, who facepalmed. She knew who the young green-haired girl was. It was her boyfriend who had turned into a woman. The shogun then asked the kunoichi to accompany the princess to the forest and protect her from danger. The kunoichi was shocked but quickly began to jump in happiness. She bowed down to the shogun and told him that she wouldn't allow the princess to be harmed even if she had to sacrifice her life for the girl. The shogun smiled and patted the girl on the back. The daimyo looked at the kunoichi and rubbed his chin skeptically. She didn't act like a normal ninja. She seemed like a goofball who didn't know the smallest thing about DSPLN. The girl frowned at his skepticism and began to show off her skills by throwing shurikens at the daimyo. The daimyo closed his eyes, but when he opened them, he noticed the metal bullets were steamed fish cakes. The daimyo pointed that out only for the girl to confess that she raided the pantry before she came, shocking the man and making him even more skeptical of her skills. The kunoichi was offended and sat on the ground in a funny position in protest. The girl pouts and begins to eat her steamed fish cake while making faces at the daimyo, making the FUNN roll his eyes. The princess then walks outside the castle with the kunoichi running on all four following, asking the princess to wait for her, only for the kunoichi to smack her head against a post and get passed out. The students were laughing at the scenes while Pony sunk deeper and deeper into her seat. The play carried on till it showed the princess and kunoichi walking down a path made from pebbles. The princess was smelling the flower that she wanted to find originally and humming happily. Her kunoichi was trailing her quietly and picking her ear. The kunoichi began to complain about the lack of action when she noticed a movement in the bushes. A samurai then jumped and tried to kidnap the princess, only for the kunoichi to throw steamed fish cake at him. The samurai laughed at the ninja girl, but he was shut up when another metal bullet hit his head, knocking him out. The princess was impressed, but then 5 more kidnappers appeared. The kunoichi tried to attack, but she tripped. She accused them of cheating in the fight even though they didn't do anything, but luckily, they were rescued by the shogun and his followers. Kendo clapped. Man, Midoriya's sister is a good actress. Maybe if we ask her nicely, she can tame her brother. I can still have nightmares about that lion I woke up to. Pony laughed dryly. Definitely. I'm going to ask her to help us. She then cracked her neck in hopes that she wouldn't kill her boyfriend accidentally. At the end of the play, the students were crying after the kunoichi died protecting the royal family from a coup. When the play ended, the actors bowed down for the audience. Both classes when the actress of the kunoichi jumped toward Pony and hugged her. The girl began kissing Pony, making the horse girl blush. The green-haired girl asked Pony, "So what do you think, babe? Did you like the little play that I made for you? I bet it was awesome." Pony chuckled, "Yeah, but please turn back to a man, Izuku. You're suffocating with your chest." The girl smiled sheepishly as she changed back into Izuku, shocking everyone. Itsuka passed out from shock, while Mineta cried that he was perving after Izuku. Pony merely sighed as she patted Izuku on the head and said, "You're a big dummy, but you're my dummy." The girl kissed him and said, "Although it was funny seeing you as a girl, please don't ever do that again." Pony looked away with a blush, "You almost made me rethink my disposition." Izuku laughed as he disappeared with his girl from everyone's sight. Kendo woke up from her coma. "I didn't think Midoriya could be hot as a girl." All the other girls looked at her. "What? I'm bi." "Well, at least, now I am." "DMN, you Izuku. Why are you always doing stupid stuff?" All the students then went to their drums to study for the exam, but one girl came back with a couple of people. They were all wearing robes. The girl put a picture of Izuku and said, "Let the cult of Izuku commence their meeting. This shall not be told to anyone." The other members nodded before they began chanting and praying to his picture. Yui looked at the people before her and smiled. It was good being the high priestess of Izuku's cult. Her Pokemon shook its head in disappointment. The Pokemon loved Yui, but sometimes the girl was a little whacked in the head. Hopefully, this will go away with time. 2 weeks later, Izuku came down from his room after he made sure to replace Itsuka's toothpaste with rotten egg cream. He can hear her screams of frustration. It made his day much more pleasant. Izuku walked into the common room of the dorms and looked at his friends who were huddled with Momo. The boy had been teasing Momo endlessly for the last week. The girl had returned fire with extra fire. She literally booby-trapped the entrance to his room with flamethrowers. Messing with Momo was like messing with the creation goddess, but it was fun. Izuku walked up to the group. "So, are you all still studying with Momo?" The boy summoned an extra hand to run his chin while he crossed his arms. "I thought she said that she gave you a break today." Mina had her soul leave her body. "I can't handle this anymore. Momo is like a real mom." She tried to sneak away only for Momo to appear and drag her back. "Freedom. I want freedom." Momo smacked her on the head, making the girl pout as Momo said, "You need to study, Mina." She gave the pink-skinned girl a candy. "Have a treat to strengthen your soul." The pink-haired girl smiled and ate the candy. "This is very delicious." The girl then went back to her lessons but took a sip from the cup of tea beside her. Momo stared at Izuku before shifting her look from observation to a glare. "What are you planning?" Izuku shrugged. "I'm going to take Pony on a small trip to Disneyland." "Do you have any food recommendations?" The girl sighed in relief before she began thinking. The girl smiled. "I suggest you order the Alaska Red King crab. It's very delicious. I had it once with soy sauce and it was delightful." "Oh, I wish I could have it again right now." Izuku rolled his eyes as he made a bowl of whole crab right in front of the girl. Momo quickly dug into the bowl as a couple of her classmates tried to escape from her studying session, but the girl stopped them and began to chastise them for trying to escape. Izuku looked at the tea and snapped his fingers, making 100 pills of lixiviates fall into the teapot. Izuku then slowly made his way outside the room and walked toward the 1B dorms. Discord appeared and shook his head. "That's cruel even for you, kid. I'm so proud of you." Izuku merely smiled, making Discord say, "Man, you're going to have people chop off your head one day." 10 minutes later, many students of Class 1A were running toward the bathroom as they felt they were about to SHT themselves. This only happened when they drank the tea Momo made. In 1B dorms, the students were lounging around lazily or studying. Setsuna looked at Ibra, who had her head deep inside her English lessons. The lizard girl was confused. For someone who was Christian, shouldn't Ibra have some proficiency in English since she reads the Bible? The door of the dorm was kicked open when Izuku walked in with a smile. Kendo went to stop him, but he phased through her and she froze. The girl became a statue made from ice. Shota sighed, "Alright, Kamakiri. It's your turn to unfreeze Prez." The bug boy walked toward the girl while he grumbled under his breath, "Do you have to stand in his way?" Pony was currently in her room. She was reading a novel while patting her EV, who was sleeping in her lap. She heard commission coming from downstairs. She sighed and put her novel away. She waited for a bit before her door was kicked from its hinges, making her complain, "For the love of all that's holy, Izuku. Stop running my door. This is the 5th time you broke it." The boy laughed, "I'll keep doing it since in a way, it proves my demps over you." The boy shivered as Pony glared at him, "I mean you'll always be my boss. Please, don't hurt me." Pony rolled her eyes, "How can you go from a lion to a nerd is something that I can't understand." The girl crossed her arms, "So what are you planning to do here? Did you find a new way to make Kendo embrace her sanity away and you want my help?" Izuku laughed and gently rubbed his girlfriend's cheek, "Sweetie, if I wanted to destroy what's left of Kendo's sanity, I would have done so already." He then covered her eyes, "I have a surprise for you." The horse girl was suspicious but nodded. Suddenly, she felt that she was teleported somewhere. Izuku then moved his hand from her eyes, "Have a look for yourself and tell me what you think about this little surprise of mine." The boy sported a smug grin, "I hope you like it." Pony's eyes widened. She was at Walt Disneyland. She only came here once or twice as a small child, but as she grew up, she couldn't afford to come here anymore. The horse girl jumped and hugged Izuku, "You're the best boyfriend ever. This is the greatest date in the whole wide world. We have to go on and try the rides." She grabbed Izuku's hand and began to drag him around like a ragdoll. "I want to try roller coaster first." The boy tried to protest, but the girl ignored him as she dragged him around the entire amusement park. She forced her boyfriend to ride all the rides even after he began to feel dizzy. They rode together on the roller coaster, the Ferris wheel, the flying carousel, the gravitron and vortex, and many more rides that made Izuku's guts turn upside down while Pony laughed like a madwoman. During their trip to Disneyland, the couple took a small trip to a clothes shop there. Pony forced Izuku to become her butler as she began to try on clothes, but the worst part was that she was teasing him. Every outfit that she tried on, she would begin to shake her hips for Izuku. She would wink at him. And the most frustrating one was when she would wear a revealing outfit and come sit in Izuku's lap asking him if he thought she was hot right now. The girl in the end bought a bunch of clothes. However, the entire time, she was shaking her hips at Izuku because she found his goofy hard eyes something to laugh at. In the end, the couple swung by a restaurant to eat and indulge themselves. Izuku decided to go full house and ordered the dish that Momo recommended for him. He also ordered more dishes such as crab sashimi, crab soup, roasted beef, pork cutlets, and many more. By the end of their date, Pony was jumping happily around as she nuzzled against Izuku. The horse girl looked at her boyfriend and leaned toward him, "Izuku, thank you for taking me on such a wonderful date. I can't express how happy I am right now." Izuku nodded, "Anything to make you happy, my precious pony." He then shoved his hand into his chest and pulled out his still beating heart. "Even if I had to give you my heart, I would do it in a heartbeat." Pony shook her head, "Please put it back." The boy did just that. The girl grabbed his hand, "Take me back to my dorm." Izuku did just that, but Pony didn't let go when they arrived. She dragged him to her room, making the boy ask, "Pony, what are you going to do?" The horse girl smirked, "This night still isn't over." Pony's classmates didn't get much sleep that night. The students of Class 1A were lounging in the dorms. Tomorrow was the day of the exam, and the students would be lying if they said they weren't nervous. It was terrifying that they were going to have their first exams at UA High, but something was bothering them even more. Bakugou was aggressive like a hissing cobra waiting for its prey to stand in front of it. The boy was aggressive, well, he was more aggressive than he normally was. He was looking at everyone like they killed his favorite dog or something. Izuku approached Bakugou and asked him, "Hey, Bakugou. Why do you look like someone pissed in your chili dog?" Everyone ducked for cover waiting for the explosive blonde to blast Izuku in a million pieces. The blonde boy turned his neck so slowly that it sounded like a rusted hinge on an old door. Bakugou's pride was still hurt from the fight between them at the sports festival. It hurt him so much that Deku, who was someone so beneath him, managed to defeat him and make him a laughingstock. It hurt his pride even more when he took the useless internship with Best Jeanist. Bakugou looked at Izuku and blew his top off. "Listen here, you filthy shitty nerd. I'm going to wipe the seafloor with my foot." This fight between us and the sports festival was rigged. There was no way you managed to defeat you here. I'm going to beat the ever-loving SHT out of you when I destroy all the robots the damn teachers will send against us. The boy's voice then began to decrease. Everyone looked and saw Izuku holding the remote controller and pointing it at Bakugou as he lowered the voice volume on it. The boy then began to press some buttons on the remote. He then raised the volume and Bakugou was now releasing a musical note from Beethoven. Momo suddenly manifested herself beside Izuku with a cup of tea in her hand and a book to read. A lot of students scrambled away from Momo, who frowned. "I told you I don't know what happened with my tea the last time. My parents must have been cheated and bought an expired one." She looked at the cook of the class. "Sato, would you be a dear and bring me a couple of cookies?" The chef of the class nodded reluctantly and brought Momo some cookies, which she began to eat with Izuku as he manifested a cup of tea for himself. Everyone's sweat dropped at how the two were acting, since they looked like an old married couple. Bakugou meanwhile was still rattling his voice box, not aware that Izuku changed the channel on his voice cords, making him nothing but a radio. The boy kept screaming, but Izuku then changed the channel once more, and Bakugou sounded like he was in a tropical forest with animal noises. Izuku then said, "All right, as much as it is amusing to hear you making a fool of yourself, we have a class that is about to start in 5 minutes, so everyone, I want you to be prepared for the exams." The boy walked outside the dorm and walked toward his girlfriend's dorm. The boy was welcomed by the annoyed look on her classmates' faces except Pony and Yui. Ibra walked up to him. "Please Midoriya-kun, stop sinning, or if you want to keep sinning, then, for the love of God, sin outside our dorms, we can't sleep properly." She hugged Izuku's waist and slid down his waist. Izuku patted her on the head and looked at Pony. "So, how are you ready for your exams?" Pony nodded. "Yeah, I'm excited for this. I'm going to destroy this exam." Izuku looked at all the students. "I promise that I'm going to make this exam of yours as challenging as possible." He then looked back at Pony. "Except my cute little pony. I can't even think of hurting her." The horse girl covered her face and looked at him with fire in her eyes. "No, Izuku. I want you to put through the toughest." The students of Class 1B descended upon Pony and shut her up. They all yelled in one voice, "Are you trying to make us fail? Whoever is partnered with you is going to pass easily. Why are you planning to take this away from us? Please Pony, have some mercy." The girl laughed a little. Okay. Izuku, go easy on me and my partner if we were partnered up." The boy laughed at his girlfriend and her friend's antics. "All right. I'm going to do just that." Vlad King entered the dorms. "All right, maggots." He saw Izuku and sighed, "And Nizu's hellspawn, I want everyone who is my student and not planning on world domination to go and wear their hero suits, because Class 1B is going to have their practical while 1A have their theoretical exam." All the students moved except Izuku and Kinoko. Vlad looked at Kinoko and asked, "And you're still here because?" Kinoko replied, "Well, you said that your students and those who don't have world domination plan to go and get ready." Vlad nodded, already not liking where this was going. "While it's true that I'm your student, I do have world domination plans. Vlad's only reply was to pass out from fear and stress. Izuku hummed and looked at Kanoko. He then gave the girl 3 million yen, pleasure doing business with you, Komori. I hope I can help with this generous donation in your attempts to help the poor. The small girl nodded, yes, this is going to help my channel. I can make more advertisements on my videos which will give me more money to help the poor. Izuku hummed, of course, I love helping those lost unfortunate souls. He patted the girl on the back, goodbye now. Kanoko smiled and walked away. Both of them didn't notice Kendo sliding against the door, safe. In Class 1A, the students were staying in their places waiting for their teacher to enter the classroom and put them through what they can describe as hell on earth, but on paper. Aizawa entered the room and set the papers on his table. All right, pain in my back, he then looked at Izuku, and the pain of my existence, the written exam is here. He gave them his classical creepy surprise, please do try to survive this exam because the practical isn't going to be easier. The students gulped a little at their teacher's tone except for Izuku who was sipping a martini as he yelled, man, why did Kendo have to be Pony's partner for the exams? I want to put snakes in her pants or make the platform launch her to the sky. Jiro looked at him, dude, you're brutal. I'm sure you can give Nizu a run for his money at this point. Nizu's voice came through the speakers, thank you, young Jiro. I'm pretty sure that Midoriya-kun will treat you well when he conquers the world. I'm sure he will make one of his enforcers. Jiro's sweat dropped a little, but Nizu's cackling and Aizawa's yelling into a walkie-talkie didn't make her feel good. Aizawa then began distributing the exams to the students and said, any cheating attempts will be met by immediate failure. Don't think you're smart and you can fool me. Smarter cheaters failed and you people have the IQ of a bunch of monkeys. Momo looked at him with a strong glare, but Aizawa replied, you always fall for Midoriya's tricks. The girl bit her tongue and looked away because she always fell for Izuku's tricks. 3 hours later, the students crawled out of the room. Their brains were fully fried. Denki looked like he went 20 times over his usual dosage. It was strong, but the boy jumped up, I didn't leave anything unanswered. I have to thank you, Yamamoto. The boy and Mina hugged Momo who was more than happy to return the hug till she noticed Denki's perverted look making her push him away from her. Aizawa then coughed, children, this is only the theoretical portion of the exam, so I want you all to get ready for the practical part of the exam, so beat it to the dressing rooms. The students ran toward the changing rooms, but Izuku stayed behind making Aizawa raise his eyebrow, is there any reason why you didn't go to the changing rooms? Izuku snapped his fingers engulfing himself in a huge puff of smoke. When the smoke cleared, Izuku was in his hero costume, what? Did you expect I was going to waste time and go to the changing rooms? This is faster. Aizawa walked away with Izuku following him, you're lucky. Izuku nodded, so, let me guess, you teachers are going to fight us today. Aizawa replied, nice to see that someone noticed, but you already knew that because I saw manga from Class 1B get implanted into a tree a while back. 5 minutes later, the entirety of Class 1A was waiting for the teachers to begin their practical exam. Mina and Kaminari were cheering themselves because they were going to face robots whose quirks were absolute when cards against the machine. Mina was already tasting s'mores in her mouth. All of their happiness and excitement died as soon as Nizu arrived. The principal then said, well, I hate to burst your bubble, kids, but today's exams are different than last year's for many reasons. Kaminari and Mina both fell to the ground in despair. Momo raised her hand, Principal Nizu, can I ask about the parameters of the new exams? And what are the new conditions of victory? And what are we going to do in this new format? Nizu gave Momo a thumbs up and said, well, good questions, young lady. First, your new exam will have you and someone from your class partnered up. The conditions of victory are either capturing your opponent or escaping. And you'll be facing the teachers. Momo nodded, but Mina asked, can we escape and bolt it? Nizu smiled and gave her a nod. All the students were then divided and arranged against the teachers. The students gulped at the matchups and some of them were worried like Kyoka and Toru. Mineta and Siro looked at their opponent who was none other than Midnight. They both shivered as the woman approached them and said, "I hope you naughty boys are ready for some punishment." Kyoka and Koda looked at each other before looking back at present Mike who gave them gun fingers. Shoji and Toru stared at Snipe who was leaning against a wall. The cowboy-themed hero then said, "Let's get ready for one heck of a rodeo, partners." Tokoyami and Tsuyu looked at Ectoplasm who said, "Know that I will not be holding back at all." Aizawa approached both Momo and Shoto sporting his signature creepy grin. Ochako was fanboying over 13 as Aoyama was standing there praising himself for being shiny. Sato and Kirishima were approached by Cementos who said, "Children, I hope today is a very educational lesson for both of you. You need to know your weaknesses and strengths." Mina and Kaminari shook in their boots as Nizu smiled at them. They were going to face the principal. It was so unfair. How were they supposed to pull a miracle of this caliber? Ojiro and Ida walked with Power Loader to go to their exam site. It wasn't going to be easy, but they were going to walk it work somehow. Finally, Izuku looked at Bakugou who was cursing the skies for being Izuku's partner. Something landed from the sky in front of Bakugou and Izuku. All Might, in all his glory, stood in front of them. "I am here for my role in the practical exams." Izuku looked at his Bakugou. He snapped his fingers and replaced himself with Shoto. Izuku looked at Momo and gave her a huge smile. "It seems that we're a team, Yamamoto. Are you ready for a day?" Aizawa wrapped Izuku's mouth with his scarf. "As much as I want to see us fight, you need to go with your partner because he seems one step away from ripping Todoroki's head off." Izuku looked at Aizawa and made money appear out of nowhere, "Not even if I gave 600 billion yen." Aizawa's eyes widened considerably. He gulped a little, but Nizu smacked his foot making Aizawa bite his lip and look away. "No, even that won't change my mind." The man walked away stiffly. Nizu looked at Izuku. "Nice try, Izuku-kun, but you need to be much better than that." Nizu smiled at his personal student. He walked away only to stop and add, "Also, never do that in front of me. It ruins the whole bribe thing." Izuku fell to the ground with a dejected look. Discord appeared on his shoulder. There. Don't feel bad. I'm sure this is going to make you stronger." He rubbed his beard. "I'm sure they teamed you with Bakugou because I'm sure they wanted you both to learn how to work together because honestly." They looked at Bakugou who had sparks emitting from his eyes. "He seems a little unhinged when it comes to you." Izuku groaned, "Don't remind me." Izuku walked to Bakugou. He flicked the boy on the head turning him into a cardboard construct. He began to fold Bakugou and put him in his pocket. "It's like I'm the king of demons. What did I ever do to him? Did I harm him in a parallel universe or something?" In another world, Izumi was standing in front of a chemical lab. He looked at a tube connecting Bakugou. "Soon enough. You'll know what happens to those who break my heart, Kaken." She then looked at another tube containing Bakugou's new girlfriend, "And this blonde-haired harlot will know my pain." Kami was still twitching inside the tube meaning she was still conscious to some extent. Back with Izuku, the boy frowned. "Yeah, I'm sure there is no version of me who harmed Kaken." Discord looked at him. "Yeah, given how he treats you, I wouldn't be shocked if the opposite was true." Izuku stuck his tongue at him, but Discord grabbed and yanked it before jumping on the top of Izuku's head and making Izuku bite his tongue. Ochako meanwhile laughed at Izuku's misery. The boy wasn't impressed by her attitude, so he snapped his fingers and put her under the gravity of the sun making the girl crawl like an ant. Aoyama went to help her, but he looked at Izuku who raised his eyebrow with a questioning look. Aoyama slowly backed away as Ochako deactivated the gravity on herself before floating to Izuku and puffing her cheeks. "This isn't funny, Deku-kun. Release me for your abilities." Izuku rolled his eyes and smiled. "Alright, I'll do it." He snapped his fingers and Ochako deactivated her quirk. The girl was suddenly on the ground. She tried to move her legs, but she couldn't feel them. She looked down and saw a fishtail. The girl had two minds. On one hand, she was going to have a test sooner or later, but on the other, she looked hot as a mermaid. The girl sighed as she flopped her way to the observation room. In the observation room, the students crowded the area. Class 1A had large question marks on their heads. Their sister class was there. Mineta walked toward the girls and tried to swipe kendo over her feet given she looked extremely giddy today. Hey, hot stuff. How about we see what purple N? The boy's body began to convulse in pain. The boy then looked at the necklace around his neck. The boy bit the necklace, but this caused him more pain. The boy was then launched from the room after Izuku kicked him into the stratosphere. Izuku looked at the hole he caused after he kicked Mineta. I have to say this is impressive. A Mineta-sized hole in the roof. I thought it would be a little bit bigger, but he was always on the smaller grade of things. He looked around and saw the girls giving him signs with the number 10 on them, but only Kendo gave him a sign with a middle finger on it. Izuku rolled his eyes. Why are you giving me a sign with such a low score? I thought you were happy I gave you a free pass. You and Pony were against Nizu-sensei, so you should be happy I made arrows for you to guide you to the finish line where you can escape. Kendo stuck out her tongue. I don't care. You think I'm going to forget everything else you ever did? Izuku smiled innocently and bowed down. Kendo, I'm sorry for everything I ever did. He crawled toward her. Please forgive me. My head is at your feet. Do whatever you want with me. Itsuka then hummed a little. On one side, this could be one of his attempts to make her life hellish, but on the other hand, this could be the beginning of a brand new chapter of their friendship. Itsuka then put her hand to him. You know something, Izuku. Let's start all over. Going on from here, we turn a new page of our lives. There will be happiness for everyone. Izuku grabbed Kendo's hand and walked away, leaving his disconnected arm holding to Kendo's arm. Kendo raised the arm and saw a stick of TNT with a fuse in it. The girl's eyebrows twitched as she muttered under her breath, "You little sniveling son of." The explosion that happened afterward launched Kendo through the ceiling like Mineta, with the girl yelling multiple curses at Izuku. The boy looked at the girls who gave him low scores for the explosion. Izuku frowned. I thought I would get a higher score than this. The girls all stuck their tongues at him. The boy frowned as Recovery Girl smacked him on the leg and said, "Focus on the game plan, kid. The first exam is going to begin." Izuku nodded. "All right, I'm going to make Kirishima's and Sato's exam something out of hell." Izuku rubbed his hands evilly and began to laugh like Nizu, scaring the students. Pony charged toward Izuku and kicked him in the head. "Stop acting so creepy. You look like a demon from hell." The boy rubbed the lump that his girlfriend made on his head. Izuku looked at the screen. "I'm going to make their life turn upside down and launch nuclear missiles at the clowns." The boy watched as Kirishima and Sato entered the testing area. With Kirishima and Sato, the two boys entered the testing area. The two boys walked around for a bit until they saw Cementos. They were both going to have an easy test if Cementos was their opponent. He seemed like easy pickings. Kirishima and Sato launched themselves at the man who sighed before slamming his hands onto the ground. The man created large cement walls and stopped the students. Kirishima and Sato began punching the walls, but something was wrong. The walls seemed like they were like RBB. The harder they punched, the easier it began to crack, but in the end, they were overwhelmed by the huge number of cement walls that buried them. In the end, the two students were defeated soundly. The two boys looked as Cementos walked up to them with a cheeky smile on his face. "You didn't think this was going to be so easy." He crossed his arms. "Plus, we have Midoriya helping us. Those RBB walls didn't come out of nowhere." The two boys frowned. "So Midoriya was tasked by Principal Nizu to make our exams harder." Inside the observation room, Izuku was laughing madly at the scene that happened in front of him. He was having fun with the aiding the teachers in their fights against the students. He can still remember vividly when he made a sea mine explode under Yui and Ibra, making them look like clowns. The exams were going to be fun for him, but he noticed the looks his classmates were giving him. What's with the long looks? I'm only doing what the teachers asked me to do, so don't judge me. Momo stepped forward. What are you planning to do with us, Midoriya? What are you planning to do with me and Todoroki? Make us face a quirk-canceling wind? Send hounds with quirks against us? Make Aizawa have his flying carpet? Izuku smiled at her. Oh Momo, sweet poor innocent Momo. He tapped the girl on the cheek gently. It's like you don't even know me anymore. The girl's face paled. There's no way in hell I'm going to tell you anything. I want your anxiety levels to reach the sky. Momo gulped. She walked toward Shoto and hugged him. My Prince Charming. The wielder of true love's embrace, can you ask your friend to lower the level of torture he's planning to inflict on us during our exam? The boy had a small blush on his face. He then walked toward Izuku and wanted to ask him only for Izuku to say, do you want to have a double atomic wedgie? Shoto asked Izuku, what is a wedgie? Izuku grinned mischievously at the boy, making Shoto gulp. Moments later, Shoto's yells of pain and agony could be heard throughout the entire place. The exams then went on like normal business, with Izuku being a constant pain in the butt for all the students. He made sure they regretted joining UA in the first place. He was doing his best to put new types of obstacles in front of him. It was like hell on earth. The first couple after the Kirishima and Sato were Tokoyami and Tsuyu. The two were forced to fight against clones of ectoplasm. It seemed easy enough since those clones looked extremely, but the problem was that the clones had different abilities. One can fly, one can breathe fire, one can distort space, while the other can fling people around like ragdolls, but by the end, by some miracle, they managed to handcuff the hero who applauded them for their victory. Mina and Kaminari were the next team after Tokoyami and Tsuyu. They entered the exam thinking they would fight a small fluffy harmless creature, but they were greeted by the visage of a giant Nizu who was slurping coffee and laughing madly. The two then began to run away like headless chickens as Nizu chased them around, destroying buildings in his wake. In the end, they failed. Mineta and Zero were next on the chopping block. Zero was taken out quickly after multiple clones of Midnight seduced him, but it was the necklace that Izuku gave Mineta that saved him, as his perverted thoughts were always interrupted before he could do anything to enact them. The boy managed to pass the final exam after he gagged himself with one of his grapes. Ida and Ojiro went to their doom next. What waited for them were a bunch of robots, land and aerial drones with missiles waiting for them, with power loader ushering them to come near them. The two spent a large amount of time fighting the robots, before trying to reach the gates. Power loader made it harder for them and the ground was like water, but they managed to succeed. Toru and Shoji walked to their exam next, as they spent half of their preparation time praying with Shiozaki to have an easy test, and they did to an extent. Izuku didn't do anything special, but Shoji had a huge arrow always pointing at him, while Toru had a spotlight hanging over their head, but somehow both students managed to pass. Momo and Shoto were dancing on thin ice next. The pair were faced by a dangerous duo of flying eyeballs that had Aizawa's quirk. It was only due to Shoto throwing sand at the flying eyeballs that they managed to get breathing space to use their quirks. In the end, they won by tying Aizawa like a piñata. Ochako and Aoyama were next. The two only faced annoying images being uploaded into their mind, but for some reason, Aoyama looked afraid of Izuku for some reason after he had something uploaded into his mind. Jiro could have sworn that she heard Izuku tell Aoyama they needed to talk about his secret. Jiro and Koda were next, but Jiro bribed Izuku with 2 tickets for a concert for him and Pony, so Izuku went easy on them. All this time, Izuku was on the ground laughing like a crazed person. He was bouncing on the ground like a madman. His hair was pure white with some kind of cloud scarf around his body. The ground under him was like RBB as he jumped on down. It was terrifying, to say the least. Manga approached Pony, your boyfriend is crazy. I mean like he's crazy. I don't think anyone can outmatch him in his craziness. Pony looked at Manga who was still picking splinters from his body. Pony looked back at Izuku and smiled, I know that he's crazy and a lunatic. She hugged him and pushed his face into her chest, but he's my crazy boyfriend and lunatic. Finally, it was the time for the exam everyone was waiting for. It was All Might against Bakugou and Midoriya. Pony looked at her boyfriend and asked, where is Bakugou by the way? Izuku smacked his fist into his hand and pulled out a small piece of cardboard. He then unfolded the cardboard and Bakugou was back into his shape. The blonde-haired boy looked at Izuku and grinned eerily, Deku, you are going. Izuku snapped his fingers teleporting them to the examination site. To die. Bakugou then launched himself toward Izuku. Izuku looked around and said, you can kill me, but... He looked at All Might who arrived at the scene, you can fight him and prove your strength. Bakugou bit his lips as he jumped at All Might with Izuku sitting back and playing creepy music. The blonde-haired boy jumped toward All Might, I'm going to destroy you, All Might. You're going to see the strength of the next #1 hero. Take this, All Might. Bakugou sent an explosion toward All Might who smiled and slipped Bakugou away. All Might looked at Izuku who was sunbathing, aren't you going to help, young Midoriya? Izuku looked at him, I'm helping. I'm healing this clown every time he injures himself. Bakugou then flew toward All Might and gave him a harsh explosion to face, but the hero grabbed him by the face and smashed his head into the ground. The man then grabbed Bakugou and flung him into the air and kneed him in the stomach. All Might jumped into the air as Izuku healed Bakugou once more. The blonde boy looked at All Might and readied a huge explosion as All Might reared his fist back to punch the boy. The two attacks met each other causing a huge shock wave. When the dust settled, Bakugou was on his knees breathing heavily, I won't give up. I will defeat you on my own. I don't need Deku's help. He was then healed once more as Izuku appeared beside him making the blonde yell, what the hell are you doing here, Deku? Izuku replied plainly, ending this. Izuku grabbed Bakugou and shaped his body like a dart while keeping All Might at bay with a force field. Go on, Bakugou. Win this for us. Izuku threw Bakugou while the boy screamed at Izuku. In the end, Bakugou passed the gates and was embedded headfirst in a tree. Their victory was then announced, but something else happened. Izuku then received a message from Nizu, young Midoriya, while Bakugou passed his exam, yours is still going on, so get ready for the next phase of your exam. Izuku looked at All Might and sighed, why can't my life be easy for once? All Might replied, don't worry, young Midoriya. I'll go easy on you. Izuku felt insulted so he snapped his fingers and something changed. The atmosphere became thicker and All Might's face became darker. The man raced at neck-breaking speeds toward Izuku and tried to punch him, I don't know how you're alive AFO, but this time you're going to die for good. Izuku caught the punch and smiled, we'll see about that All Might. OFA will be mine this time. The two then began to exchange punches, but Izuku jumped back and turned into an elephant. He jumped down on All Might and crashed him. The boy was then lifted by All Might and thrown away only to turn into a small flying squirrel. Izuku looked at All Might and launched a laser beam at him. All Might powered through the laser beam, but Izuku then trapped All Might inside a glass bubble. The man kept punching on the bubble and it began to crack making discord appear beside Izuku, man, I have to give it to him. He's strong. No one was ever able to crack those bubbles, he then looked at Izuku, or maybe you're just weak. Izuku flicked him away. All Might broke free from his prison and saw what seemed like AFO standing in front of him. The man looked at his opponent. He couldn't lose now. All Might then raced toward Izuku and punched him only for his fist to be caught by AFO. The hero's other fist was raised only to be caught by a WHP from whipped cream. Izuku then punched All Might in his injury. The hero coughed BLD as Izuku lifted him and kneed him in the back before he jumped back and kicked him in the face. Izuku jumped high into the air and prepared to kick him in the chest. All Might prepared to dodge, but he was then shocked when he received a kick to the face sending him through several buildings. All Might came from the rubble and went back to fight with his opponent. The two exchanged punches as the shockwaves from their hits began to shake the buildings in UA. All Might then yelled, "United States of Smash." The blonde man released his strongest attack toward Izuku, who punched him back. The result of the two punches meeting each other was a huge dust cloud that blinded everything and destroyed everything so much that they needed flying drones to see what happened. In the observation room, they waited for the smoke to clear. When the smoke cleared, everyone except Pony was shocked. The city that All Might and Izuku were fighting in was nothing but rubble. In the center of the destruction, Izuku was holding a barely alive All Might, making Recovery Girl complain about how she was going to heal him only for the boy to heal All Might and repair the city. The man was then teleported to the infirmary. Izuku looked at the city and frowned. Man, that wasn't entertaining at all. He then jumped to the side to avoid a kick directed at him from Miruko, who said, "Maybe, I can alleviate your boredom." Izuku looked and saw the rest of the top 10 heroes and his teachers readying themselves to fight him as Nizu said on speaker, "Young man, this is the final part of the exam. You have to fight the rest of the top 10 heroes and your teachers." He pointed to a small prison. "You have to capture the 9 top heroes here and put them in there, while you defeat your teachers. Let the fun begin." Izuku smiled as he disappeared from their sight, but suddenly Yoromusha was being pulled back toward the prison. He looked and saw Izuku with a huge magnet. The man tried to run away, but nothing worked as he was flung inside the jail. The heroes were shocked at how one of them was defeated so easily, so they went to fight him back. Hawks tried to slash Izuku, but the boy pulled out a vacuum cleaner and sucked all his feathers inside of it. The featherless man was now hanging loosely in the air until gravity decided that he needed a much-wanted reunion with the ground. Izuku opened a portal and Hawks landed through it in the cage. Miruko came to kick him, but Izuku pulled out a hat. The heroine couldn't stop herself as she entered the hat, so Izuku put the hat on his head as he continued his fight with the rest of the heroes. First, he grabbed Washington. He looked at him and frowned. "You need to go to your company." The hero tried to trap Izuku inside one of his bubbles, but Izuku manifested a knitting machine as he grabbed Edgeshot and put him into it. This distraction caused Izuku to be trapped inside Wash's bubble, but the boy yawned a little and popped it. He grabbed Wash and summoned a cardboard box. He then stuffed the hero in it and yelled, "Back to sender." Izuku threw the box to the cage and turned to his knitting machine where it was finished. He pulled a shirt from it and put it on. The shirt was crying a little, making Izuku say, "Hey, you do the crime, you do the time." Best Jeanist looked at his friend's status, so he sent his threads to tie the boy up. The man succeeded, but then Izuku melted in front of his eyes. He then reformed behind him as he used the hero's quirk to tie him up and send him to prison. Izuku then saw Ryuko trying to attack him, but he smiled. Izuku changed his clothes to that of a cowboy. The boy then jumped on the dragon heroine's back. The heroine then noticed a leash in her mouth and Izuku had a WHP. The boy then said, "I want to tame my own dragon now." The boy then began to WHP the heroine until she finally decided to move according to his orders. The boy then said, "I want a roasted tree and whale." Gang Orca and Kamui Woods looked at him skeptically since Ryuko couldn't breathe flames, but when the heroine opened her mouth, flames gushed at them. The two heroes jumped into the cage. Izuku made Ryuko land. He patted her on the head. The dragoon heroine nuzzled her head against his hand. Izuku pointed to the cage and the heroine entered before returning to normal. The heroine was blushing heavily though. All the other heroes looked at her, making her say, "Don't judge me." Izuku's hat was then tossed into the cage. A portal opened and Izuku's hand came through it. The boy put his hand deep into the hat and pulled out Miruko. Izuku looked at his final opponent. It was Endeavor. The man smirked, "You're strong. Once I defeat you and make you marry my daughter, I'll have invincible grandchildren." Izuku rolled his eyes as Endeavor launched a strong fire attack at him, but the boy replied by grabbing the ground and stretching it over his head. The attack was then redirected toward the flame hero who blocked it. The hero was kicked by Izuku into a machine. Izuku waited for the machine to finish what it was doing. The boy looked at his hands and heard a beep. He then went and grabbed a small can with Endeavor's face on it. Izuku walked to the cage and threw Endeavor inside it. He just won against the top 10. Izuku looked at his teacher and said, "Do you really want to do this?" Vlad King gave a war cry and charged at Izuku using a BLD hammer. Izuku summoned a big flyswatter and hit the man, sending him flying away. "Man, I hate oversized bats." Vlad came out of the rubble with a pissed-off expression. He then made a bow and quiver. He aimed an arrow made from BLD and fired them at Izuku, who took them all in his body. The BLD hero smiled, but the boy shocked him when he absorbed the BLD and aimed a cannon at him. "Say cheese," the boy said, sending a huge blast of energy toward Vlad. When the attack finished, Vlad was nothing but a charred man. Just like in cartoons, the wind blew by Vlad and he crumbled into dust. Izuku then came and used a dustbin to pick up Vlad. In the observation room, Vlad was transported there as Kendo looked at him. "Seriously, he defeated that easily? You're weak." Izuku then felt he was being pulled back. He turned his head 180 degrees and saw 13 using her quirk. Izuku snapped his fingers and turned the heroine's quirk against her, making Black Hole SCK her inside. Inside the observation room, 13 was dropped on top of Vlad as Ochako barreled into her and cried about how she was that the heroine was okay. What followed was ectoplasm summoning an army of clones. Izuku smiled. "Well, I guess this is time to bring the big guns." He then summoned his Shikijimi. "I have you like my pets, ectoplasm." The hero gulped as he was mauled by Izuku's monsters. While the clone hero was being attacked by Izuku's monsters, the boy lifted his hand and stopped 3 bullets fired at him by Snipe. Cementos tried to use Izuku's distraction to trap him in cement, but the boy switched places with Hound Dog. When Cementos knew what happened, it was already too late to fix his mistakes. Izuku used Snipe as a battling ram and smacked the cement hero's head with the man. By the end, Cementos, Ectoplasm, Hound Dog, and Snipe were teleported to the observation room. Izuku looked at a corner and opened a portal. "Come on, Aizawa-sensei. We both know that you can't do it." The man jumped from the shadows and entered the portal as he had a white flag. The rest of the fight ended relatively quickly because Izuku used his supersonic speed to take out the remaining teachers. In the observation room, the hero students were shocked at how Izuku defeated not only his teachers but the top 10 heroes of the country. Pony was the only happy one. "My boyfriend is so awesome. He's so cool." Inside the LOV bar, Tamura received a package from Midair that said, "I'm so much better than you." The man was furious but decided to see what the package was about. When he watched it and saw Izuku defeating everyone including All Might, he was beyond livid. He screamed loudly till his lungs burned out from anger. In the League's hideout, Tamura was biting on a table to calm his nerves. A very annoying video greeted the decay villain sent to him from Midair. He watched it and didn't like the content very much. His new colleagues on the other hand were a different story altogether. Dobby was watching the video in a loop, especially the Endeavor turned into tuna can part, but what made the black-haired man laugh really strong was the slogan on the can. The slogan read, "Food was salty enough." Well, don't worry with the new salty Endeavor salt can, you can have the saltiest food ever, given how the man himself is salty about his inability to become the #1 hero. The blue flame villain was rolling on the ground from laughter. The less said about Himiko the better. She was a whole level of crazy, even Tamura didn't want to address. It was better that way to retain whatever little of his sanity he had left. Tamura went to Dabi and smacked the controller from his hand. I want to play my video game, so beat it and give me the TV. Was he being a beach about it? Yes, he was. Did he care? No, he didn't. Dabi growled under his breath, you don't have to be rude about it. Just because your arch-nemesis is too strong for you to fight doesn't mean you have to be a beach about it. He left Tamura, who began to grind his teeth angrily, and went to the bar. Dabi looked at Kurojiri, give me something strong so I can down it in one gulp and pass out, because if I continue watching that video, I might die from laughter and happiness. He said with a small chuckle. Kurojiri shrugged and gave Dabi the strongest alcohol he got. Once the man drank it, he fell asleep. Tamura walked up to Dabi with a Sharpie and smiled. Kurojiri looked at him and asked, is this really wise, young Mstr? Tamura didn't listen to him and drew a small endeavor on Dabi's face. Tamura smiled to himself, this is what you get for implying that I'm weak and can't beat that green-haired brat. The blue-haired man went away to continue playing his game while Kurojiri began to fortify the bar, because once Dabi was up and saw this, he would ruin it. Kurojiri looked around, wait, where is young Toga? I don't see her here. Tamura then said, once she watched the video, she looked hot and bothered. She said she needed to use the bathroom for a while, so you can get where I'm going at. Kurojiri sighed, since when did I become the mother of this group of miscreants? Tamura replied, the moment sensei made you my handler, you should have known it was going to be a rough ride, but don't worry, you'll always be my right-hand man. Kurojiri looked at him, I don't know if I should feel flattered or worried. Tamura replied, well, feel whatever you like to feel. It's not like it's going to change anything. Inside a lab filled to the brim with Nomu, a portly man sat in front of the screen watching the video that was sent to Tamura. This quirk is magnificent. Sensei, you need to get your hands on it, because if you do, nothing in this world will even stand a chance against you. AFO hummed and looked at the video. He saw how Izuku manhandled All Might with relative ease. He will cherish this scene in his memory for all eternity. The sight of All Might all battered and bruised like he just went through a blender, but then came the boys' fight with the top heroes of Japan. The man almost busted a BLD vessel from laughing. He especially liked how the boy tamed the dragon heroine, but what intrigued him the most was that Eraserhead's quirk didn't have any effects on the boy's quirk. Now, that was something to take note of. AFO looked at the screen and asked, good doctor, so what did you find about this young man? Dr. Garaki stood to attention, well, my lord, I have reached a dead end. There is nothing in his family that would suggest how he got such an absurd quirk. I checked his lineage to the dawn of quirks, but they all had weak quirks and only a few stood out. This quirk of his is quite the mystery, though he could be one of those few cases where a child develops a quirk different from his family, but even then, he shouldn't have got something this powerful, not that I'm complaining. AFO nodded and ushered him to carry on. I tried to use a Nomu with an invisibility quirk to kidnap his mom so that we could force him to come over and surrender his quirk, but once the Nomu came near her, it was vaporized into nothing. AFO smiled, so, it appears young Midoriya isn't someone to be messed with. He rubbed his chin, I suppose he made defensive measures against us. He must have put them on his loved ones. Dr. Garaki nodded, that's true. Even when I tried to kidnap his dad from the US by using Johnny, the small Nomu froze into a solid block of ice. It took me a while to unfreeze him. AFO asked, is there a way to kidnap the boy himself without garnering attention? Garaki shook his head, unless we're planning to use one of these high-end Nomus we're working on, then nothing is going to work. The boy is very cautious. I once hacked into a security feed to watch him at the mall, but he looked at it and waved. It was like he was seeing me. AFO was worried and intrigued, that's worrisome. He looked at a screen that showed the bar where Tamura was playing a game pretending one of the characters was Midoriya. For now, we won't do any move against him, but make sure to have our spy keep an eye on him. Garaki nodded, but what are you going to do about young Tamura? That brat is impulsive and he might ruin everything if he decided to kill the Midoriya kid in one of his tantrums. AFO replied, "Don't worry, good doctor, I will talk to young Tamura and explain to him not to do anything drastic that might threaten our plans." Garaki nodded and went back to his work, leaving AFO to his thoughts. AFO began to wonder, when Garaki told me about years ago, but I said that making you into a Nomu wasn't worth the effort of catching you. I wonder if I did, what would have occurred. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 8. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Demon Heart 12 on fanfiction.net. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.